Most people know China says Taiwan belongs to them. But what most people don't know is that China didn't always feel this way. Not Mao Zedong, not Deng Xiaoping, not until Taiwan was about to become fully democratic just 30 years ago. Because the line, Taiwan is an inseparable part of China, isn't ancient history. It's a threat, aimed at Taiwanese and at the world that says, if you disagree, I might start World War III. So many countries play dead to play nice. But 2 weeks ago, Japan's new Prime Minister, Sene Takahashi, did something very unplay dead. As Japan's first female leader, she showed the world she's actually the one with balls to say the obvious. I'll get to what she said, and in this video, I'll show you what the world really says about Taiwan, and what China used to say, before Taiwan became everything the Chinese government fears. First, a quick intro. Hi, I'm Seriously, Taiwan Matters. I'm Taiwanese American, now living in Europe. These are my guinea pigs, responsible for the drum beats and most of the good looks in this video. So, Japan's Prime Minister said, an attack on Taiwan could be a threat to Japan's survival, meaning Japan has the legal right to defend itself. Yeah, if your giant neighbor loves invading smaller countries, you might be too if you're not prepared. China did not appreciate Japan's leader speaking up for Japan. The consul general in Osaka, Jiang, declared, that filthy neck that stick itself in must be cut off without a moment's hesitation. Are you ready? This guy is a Chinese diplomat, threatening the leader of the world's 5th largest economy. What do Chinese generals say then? Hold my beer? And instead of condemning him, China doubled down and demanded Japan's prime minister resign. So let's stop pretending that tiptoeing around the question, is Taiwan a country, is going to turn China into a class act. A lot of people in democracies think their governments quietly agree that Taiwan belongs to China. But the confusion really comes down to 2 words, principle versus policy. China uses the One China principle. Democracies use the One China policy. Principle and policy are similar in the same way both words are similar to porcupine. They start with P and have 3 syllables. After that, nothing in common. A principle is a belief, a claim, not what's true, just how one feels. Like, pineapple is the best pizza topping. That's a principle, a personal belief. China's One China principle is simply China's belief that Taiwan is part of China. A policy, on the other hand, is just how you deal with something. A pizzeria might have a policy of not arguing about pineapple with customers. You can love pineapple, doesn't mean you can order it on their pizza. So, democracies have adopted a One China policy, which basically means we hear China's claim, we don't endorse it. It's bland, like diplomacy, something the Chinese consul general might want to try sometime. But what isn't bland is what democracies say about Taiwan everywhere else. On the U.S. State Department website, it says, we expect cross-strait differences to be resolved by peaceful means, free from coercion, in a manner acceptable to the people on both sides of the strait. Free from coercion and acceptable to Taiwanese people usually means voting in a democracy, not being circled by warships and warplanes. And every now and then, how people actually see Taiwan slips out, like President Trump's tariff board of countries. Taiwan, 4th on the list. And if you ask regular people, it's even clearer. A British YouTuber named Lewis on the Free China channel asks people on the street whether Taiwan is a country. About 95% say yes. That's a higher honesty rate than many UN committees. But at the United Nations, democracies have also spoken up, clearly and loudly. The 27 countries in the European Union, the UK, Canada, Australia, and the United States have all condemned China for distorting history and international law by misinterpreting UN Resolution 2758 to claim Taiwan is part of China. Your eyes might be glazing over now. I get it. UN Resolution 2758 sounds dead boring. And it is. But it's also just 1 page, shorter than a bubble tea menu. In 1971, the UN voted to give the China seat to the People's Republic of China, the PRC. That seat used to belong to the Republic of China, the ROC, the government in Taiwan. Fun fact, the ROC was a founding member of the United Nations long before the PRC even existed. Resolution 2758 records one thing. PRC gets the China seat and expel the representatives of Chiang Kai-shek. It mentions Taiwan exactly 0 times. Nothing on sovereignty, nothing on Taiwan's status, because Taiwan wasn't even part of the discussion. But China now pretends the resolution says Taiwan is part of China, hoping no one reads the one-pager. Except UN resolutions aren't Disney movies. You don't get to rewrite the ending to give yourself a happy one. Like I said earlier, China hasn't always felt that Taiwan was part of China. This One China principle wasn't carved on a 5,000-year-old stone tablet. The line, Taiwan is an inseparable part of China, it's only about 30 years old, barely older than an iPad, and way less popular. Before that, including Mao, Chinese leaders were saying almost the opposite. In a 1936 interview with American journalist Edgar Snow, Mao Zedong said, "If Korea wishes to break away from Japanese imperialism, we will enthusiastically support their struggle for independence. The same applies to Formosa," what Taiwan used to be called. According to Mao, Taiwan was the same as Korea, a Japanese colony that deserved independence, not part of China, and for all his faults, Mao at least remembered his history. Formosa was only partially ruled by the Qing dynasty for a couple centuries, then ceded to Japan forever. No one in China was losing sleep over Taiwan. The Qing dynasty even restricted its own citizens from moving to this wild island. Deng Xiaoping, China's leader through the 70s and 80s, was even more explicit. During talks with Japanese Prime Minister Takeo Fukuda, Deng said, "Taiwan's status has not yet been decided." He also said, "We have never advocated settling the Taiwan question by force." And while proposing early one country, two systems, he even offered Taiwan may keep its own army. This is what it sounds like when you're sweet-talking someone to marry you, even though you know they're not into you. Creepy? Yes. Delusional? No. Now we get to the turning point. Right when Taiwan was transitioning into a real democracy, lifting martial law, legalizing opposition parties, holding free elections, China's tone suddenly changed. In Jiang Zeming's 1995 8-point proposal, he declared, "Taiwan is an inseparable part of China's territory." This was the first time a CCP leader used hard territorial language. Why 1995? Because in 1996, Taiwan was about to hold its first direct presidential election. And China realized you can negotiate with one ruler, you can negotiate even with one party, you cannot negotiate with 23 million voters. Democracy is kryptonite to a dictator, and people generally don't vote to be taken over by an authoritarian regime, especially not by their unhinged neighbor with boundary issues. Under Xi Jinping, China's principle turns into a non-negotiable threat. Xi says unification must happen and may happen by force. Why is China so determined to take over Taiwan? Because Taiwan is a problem for the Chinese Communist Party. What if 1.4 billion people look across the strait and say, "I want those rights too"? So why am I telling you all this? Because my family lives in a small country, like Taiwan. And when big countries decide who gets to exist, it never ends well. It reminded me of a poem by Martin Niemöller, who watched a different dictatorship rise. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. It's never about who you are, it's about what they are. Standing together isn't charity, it's self-defense, especially for democracies, and especially for anyone smaller than China. Please subscribe and check out our other videos.